All right, everyone, welcome back to part two of going over each of the cards in the Sociables series. So last video I went over the ace to 7, and in this video I'll be going over the 8 to the joker. Now, a couple things that I didn't mention in the last video, but I did want to mention now. Most of the cards, after they're played, are returned back face down into the deck. So let's say you have the deck in the middle of the group, and let's say you pull over a 7. So you'll place the 7 down, you play that mini game, and then it stays there, and then the next person will go and have a 6. Once it's played, it just stays there. But there are some cards that you have to keep with you until the next person grabs that card, because it applies to that person in particular. Examples of this would be the Joker, of course, and then the the Queen, the Jack, the 10, and then the 3, the 4, and the 2. So those cards you keep with you until the next person would pick up one of those cards. The rest of them can just go into the pile beside the deck. So anyhow, continuing on with the video. So number 8 is called Rhyme Time. And so the person who picks up this card will say 2 words that rhyme with each other, such as, let's see here, I don't know, money and funny, for example. And then the next person beside them will have to say another word that rhymes with the 2 words that person said. And it'll keep going in a circle until the first person can't think of a word or takes too long or says something that's already been said. And one key thing to keep in mind with this is you have to actually know what the word means. Generally, saying words that might be a word, but you're not really sure and you have to Google them, don't really count, ideally. So anyhow, the first person to mess up gets a point, and this will just keep going. So pretty standard card. And then we have the 9. And so 9 is called categories. And so the person who picks it up chooses a category. Let's say U.S. states, for example. And so they'll say U.S. states and then say Hawaii, for example. The next person beside them will add another U.S. state to that list, so Alaska. And it'll keep going around in the circle, as with previous minigames, until the first person messes up and can't think of something or gets stumped for too long. So it'd be like Hawaii, Alaska, Maine, New Mexico, California, and then someone struggles, takes too long, then they get a point. And it just keeps going until the first person messes up. So that's categories. 10. 10 is probably the most overpowered card in the game. It is called the Thumb Master. So Thumb Master, they keep with them until the next person picks up a 10, of course. So at any point in the game, the person who has the 10, the Thumb Master, can put their thumb on the table like this, and it has to be clearly visible to everyone else at the rest of the table. It can't be like this or at the edge. It has to be on the face of the table, clearly visible. It cannot be hidden or obstructed by objects that target one player. It has to be easily visible by everyone. Anyhow, so they will put their thumb onto the table at any point in the game. So you can be playing a mini game, you can be playing like categories or rhyme time or whatever. The person who has the Thumb Master puts their thumb on the table, and then everyone else around the table has to pay attention and also put their thumb on the table. And the last person to put their thumb on the table gets a point. And you can do this unlimited times as long as you have the 10. The important thing to keep in mind is you must reset after the person is called out. If you fail to reset, then you get a point. And this includes the Thumb Master too. If the Thumb Master just keeps it there, they also failed to reset. So you must reset after the person is called out. And so if you get this card, you're basically guaranteed to not lose the game. If you have it for a long time, of course. But it is very overpowered. You can get people to get loads and loads of points throughout the game. This is actually usually the card that causes people to lose, is because someone will always be the one person that usually forgets to pay attention to the thumbs, and they'll just keep racking up points. Especially when they have cards like Eye Contact at the same time, or Troll, in which maybe they have to sit on the floor instead. It can be very easy to get them with the thumb. So this is a very, very overpowered card. So again, anytime you want, the Thumb Master just puts their thumb on the table, everyone else has to follow, and then the last person to notice and put their thumb gets a point. Next is the Jack. Jack is called the Helper, and so this person will keep the card with them until the next person gets a Jack. Essentially, it's a very bad card, the exact opposite of a 10. This person, when they have the card, anyone at the table can tell this person to do something like, hey, fetch me a glass of milk, for example, or give everyone at the table a fist bump. And if they don't follow this, whatever people tell them to do, then they get a point. However, what the table tells them to do has to be within reason. It can't be like leave the game or something. Like, it can't be like that. It has to be reasonable. And you can only ask this person once per round. The person can only be asked by the whole table one thing once per round. And then the next person gets a jack. Then they will no longer have it. And anyways, keep in mind, if the person refuses to do something like, hey, I refuse to grab a glass of milk for you, they get a point then. So that's a jack, very bad card, the opposite of a 10. Queen is the question master. And so this is, again, why I said it's kind of good to play with people that you sort of know. You can ask anyone at the table a question between now and your next turn. So you pull the queen, you have a question master, you can ask anyone at the table a question that they must answer truthfully. However, it sometimes can be hard to think of a question on the spot, so you can ask someone a question now, or you can wait until your next turn or interrupt the game at whatever time between those 2 points and ask someone a question. Now, use the honor system, of course. If you're asked a question, please answer truthfully. If you are lying and someone knows that you're lying, you will get 5 points. So anyhow, you have to answer the question truthfully when someone asks you. It has to be a reasonable question. It can't be like, oh, what's your password to this, right? That would not be a reasonable question. If you actually ask unreasonable questions like that, you will also get 5 points. Now, if you refuse to answer, so say an example question is like, oh, who do you like right now? Or who do you have a crush on? And that person is shy to answer it, you will get 5 points if you refuse to answer a question. So this is a pretty good card. And you can keep it until your turn, but you must ask someone in that time frame. The king. So the king is kind of a variational card. I've played a few different versions of this. Kind of the most fun version I've played is actually, I forgot to mention this earlier, you will have actually a set amount of spoons right beside the cards. So let's say you have the cards right here, and then you have some spoons here, and the old cards will be here. So you'll have the number of spoons will be the number of group members -1. So if you have 5 people playing, you'll have 4 spoons. If you have 7 people playing, you'll have 6 spoons, and so forth. And so when you pull out the king, again, everyone must see it when you pull the card down, you immediately grab a spoon. The last person to grab the spoon will get a point. And so this will be good, and then you must reset after the last person didn't get a spoon. But again, this is a variation card, so there are some other versions you can play with. And last but not least is the Joker. There's only 2 of these in the deck, I suppose. But yeah, the Joker is called the Genie. And so the Genie, they have to put the card on their forehead, and it must stay there naturally. They cannot hold the card at their forehead. But as long as it's staying on their forehead in some way or fashion, then they can ask anyone at the table to do anything, again, within reason, similar to the Jack. And if that person refuses to do something, then they get a point. But you can only ask once per round, of course. You can only ask one person one thing per round. And again, if they refuse, they get a point. However, if this falls off of your forehead at any point, this card is no longer in effect, and you can no longer tell people what to do, and you also get a point because it fell when you were supposed to keep it there. And then when the next person grabs a Joker, then they are now able to tell people what to do, and it can be anyone at the table. Anyhow, so those are all the cards in Sociables. Of course, keep in mind there are variations that can be played. You can add your own cards, you can make different effects, just as long as the group agrees upon it. And one thing I forgot to mention is the group, someone should keep score. So there shall be a scorekeeper and just record when each person gets a point. Anyhow, I hope you have a fun time playing this game with whoever you're going to play with. Wishing you the best. Thank you so much for listening. Take care now.